You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is the program called The Wonderful World of Wardini Books, and it's our pleasure, as always, to have in the studio the wonderful Lou from the World of Wardini Books. How you going, Lou?
Very well, Ken. Yourself?
Oh, good to have you here with us. And I just remind our listeners, you've got two stores, one in Havelock and one in Napier. What streets are they in?
They are 16 Tomato Road in Havelock North and 44 Hastings Street in Napier.
Three more great books to review this week. The Dog Runner.
The Dog Runner is in a box because it's not actually out until tomorrow, so I didn't bring it in today. But this is a chapter book for kids of about 9 or 10 and up. It's by a New Zealand-born author, Bren McDibble. She lives in Australia now, and she's been winning awards in Australia and New Zealand. She kind of takes out everything at the moment for her kids' books and her young adult books.
Great.
So this one, The Dog Runner, excuse me, is set in a near-future Australia. And there's been some kind of fungus that has wiped out the grasses. Well, the grass, because it's this European grass that's been used for everything. There's no diversity in their plant life. And of course, it's just killed everything. And it's also a worldwide phenomenon. And so there's no power, there's no food, there's no jobs, you know, so it's sort of, it's an apocalypse, and it's affected everything. So you've got young Ella and her half-brother, I think his name's Emmett. Of course, I haven't got the book in front of me to check, but I think his name's Emmett. And they're living with their father, and the mum/stepmom is a scientist, and so she's still got a job at the power company, and they haven't seen her for months because she's not being let out. They're working all hours to get the power back up again. Emmett, I did say it was set in Australia, didn't I?
Yes.
So it was, his mother, his real mother, is First Nations. So the dad goes to try and find the mum and says, I'll be back, and doesn't come back. And so Emmett says, right, we're going off to find my mother in the bush. It might not be so bad out there. They've got these massive dogs in the home with them, and they get hold of another couple of massive dogs by hook and crook and all sorts of parts of the plot, and they've got a dog sled, a wheeled dog sled, and that is how they traverse. And it's a tale of absolute danger and excitement, and it's so close future, and you hear about these weird things happening with global warming and with all sorts of things like that it's near enough to be scarily true. So it was a really exciting read.
Good movie.
It would be, actually, because there's sort of fight scenes and chase scenes, and people can't be trusted in an apocalypse.
That's right, they can't everyone out for themselves.
Dog eat dog.
Too right. And they've got 4 dogs to eat.
Yeah.
And the next book is called The Friend.
Yes, with also a dog in it. There's a bit of a theme emerging. So this one is beautiful. It's a grown-up novel, and it's by Sigrid Nunez. I think I'm going with the pronunciation there. And this has also won heaps of awards. National Book Award, I think that's in America. It's more on the literary side of things. And the premise of it is that our protagonist, who never has a name, it's a woman, one of her very, very best friends has died. And wife number 3 of very best friend can't cope with the dog that he has found. And adopted. It's a Great Dane. So it's not even a tiny little dog, lap dog or anything. So the unnamed protagonist's friend ends up being guilted into taking on this dog who is grieving. And she is grieving. So the dog is a real dog, but it's also this metaphor for grief. And it's a huge exploration of that grief, and also it's an explanation of writing, because the protagonist and the dead guy, for want of a better word, they were writers, and he was hugely successful and a teacher, a professor at a college. And so it's really exploring writing and grief and friendship and all sorts of things. And it's not a very big book, and it's almost like got swathes of philosophy into writing, and self-publishing gets a bit of a bashing in there. And it's a beautiful book. A
thinking person's book, perhaps.
Definitely a thinking person's book.
Out of 10, what would you rate it?
For the type of book it is, a 9.5 at least.
That's very good, isn't it?
I was very moved by this book. And I've turned lots of pages down, which you're not supposed to do, are you? But it's my book and I can.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So I just thought it was beautiful.
Get a highlight marker sometimes to do that.
Yeah, a bit of pencil. Bit of pencil in the margins.
And our last book we're going to look at today is called Ayesha at Last. What's that all about?
This is a bit of a breath of fresh air, actually. So we've had apocalypse, we've had death, and now we're just going to have what is really being billed as a Muslim Pride and Prejudice. And it is. So it's actually set in Toronto, in Canada, and we're dealing with big immigrant families, and they're there for generations. Some of them have been, they are
Yes.
Canadian, they've been born into Canada, but some are also been refugees, that kind of thing. And Ayesha she's not had, they're called rishtas, where you are introduced to some stranger, that you might want to marry, and they might want to marry you, and the aunties and the mothers all sort it out, and you're just kind of dragged along. But she hasn't had many of these. She's wanting to be a career woman. She's just qualified as a teacher. She's not quite sure if she wants to be a teacher. She's actually a poet, but it's her very sort of flighty young cousin that's getting all the rishtas and doing all the flirting, and is a bit of an airhead actually. But she meets this guy who is through a friend, and he's the sort of Mr. Darcy character, and he's very traditional Muslim, and so he won't shake a woman's hand if she's not a blood relative. That
Yes.
kind of fundamentalism, and they don't hit it off because he clearly disapproves of her doing her poetry in the bar, and he's been tricked almost into going to the bar. So you've really got your Mr. Darcy, Elizabeth Bennet misunderstanding Pride and Prejudice situation, but it's just a really nice, it's almost a romantic comedy, but it says a lot about that immigrant experience as well, and about Islam, which is totally misunderstood in this day and age.
Almost a bit of a Mills and Boon.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Isn't it?
No, because it is very intelligently written, nicely plotted. Occasionally you'll think, oh yeah, that was a bit Pride and Prejudice-y, but it's not forcing that down your throat.
No.
It's not a carbon copy of. And it was just really nice to read something out of my culture,
Bit different.
It was great.
Yeah. And what would you rate that?
That's a good 8. Yeah, in its genre as well, an 8 or a 9 out of 10, because it was funny and it was smart.
Would men read that book?
I don't see why they wouldn't.
They probably wouldn't.
It's got men in it. Yeah.
Just remind our listeners before I let you get back to work, we want to come and see you for a good book. Where are you?
We're 16 Tomato Road, Havelock North, and 44 Hastings Street, Napier.
As always, our pleasure. Look after yourself. Talk to you same time, same place next week.
Cheers, Ken.